So we'll begin by hearing from Don Fetter, who is Director of Coalitions and Coordinator of Regional Conferences for the World Conference of Families, World Congress of Families. And he's going to provide background information about the process of proposing a regional or official WCF event.
That's right. I think we'll be talking, Levon is going to present on the next World Congress of Families, which will be in Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia, next year. And Rebekah will be talking about Trinidad and the Caribbean, and I forget who else we have on. Anyway.
Could you stand up, please? Because we've got to record.
It's much easier for me to speak.
Do you want this?
I'm sorry, but I'm really
All
right, you're fine.
On this side, would it help?
That's all right. If you just stay there, then, yeah, if you'd move over there, then I can get him good. Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'm sorry, but I've done 8 or 9 meetings in the last few
That's
days,
okay.
so okay, I am the Director of Coalitions and Coordinator of Regional Conferences. Now, we have Congress, well, we used to have Congresses every 2 to 3 years. Now we're having them almost every year. We're going to be in Tbilisi next year, that will be 10, 11, I think we'll be in Puerto, Portugal, the following year, 2017, and then 2018, possibly Cape Town, South Africa. And Erroll Naidoo will be here to talk about that. In the past 8 years, I have spoken at regional conferences in London, Trinidad, Tbilisi, where we're having our World Congress, Belgrade, Abuja, Nigeria, Moscow, Riga, Sydney, Melbourne. We're now, if we're doing congresses almost every year, we're doing probably 5 to 6 regional conferences every year. By the way, this is the last copy I have of this. I was hoping to bring enough for everyone here. This is how to organize the World Congress of Families regional event. And it should be on our website. If it isn't, email me, please. And I'll send you a copy. My email, and it's fairly easy to remember, is D, for my first name, D, F-E-D-E-R, at RCN, as in RobertCharlesNathan.com. And if you're interested in doing a regional conference, we'll get you a copy of the organizer's guide. Some people tend to make too much of this, you know. I've been trying to get our friends in Real Women of Canada to put on a regional conference for years. So far they've resisted. I think I may be weakening their resistance. But you don't have to have a specific number of people to have a successful conference. I think success should be gauged more by the quality of the people who are there, leadership types, and the information that's imparted rather than raw numbers. Although we've had regional conferences of anywhere from 75 to as many as 500 people. In fact, Rebekah did 2 great regional conferences in Trinidad. You had over 100 people. That you close to
150 and 250.
150 and 250. And Trinidad is not a large country, as you probably know. And then our friend from Serbia, the people in Dveri, am I pronouncing it correctly, Dveri, have also had 2 regional conferences. The last this past spring, which was really great. Did an outstanding job. Okay, what do you need to start? You need to settle on a budget. What is it going to cost? It doesn't have to be that expensive unless you're going to bring in a number of international speakers and pay for their travel and accommodations and the rest. You don't have to spend a lot. I would say the average Congress probably costs anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000, and in some cases less than that. But we'll talk about that in a moment. So you want to start with a group of dedicated activists, either an organization or a group of like-minded people that will serve as your organizing committee contact us, we'll discuss the feasibility, and assuming that we're compatible, assuming that we're on the same wavelength philosophically, your meeting conference can be designated a World Congress of Families regional conference. And by the way, in a number of cases, people have already been planning a conference, and we gave them the designation World Congress of Families regional event, even though it was also something else. For instance, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation had a conference in Orlando, their second anti-sexual exploitation summit in September, and they asked us if they could also designate it a World Congress of Families regional event, and we were delighted to give them that designation. Okay, what do you have? You have an organizing committee. What do you need to do? You need to pick a date, and I would say try to pick a date that's at least 8 months out. You can organize a Congress in 6 months, and depending on the people involved, I suppose you could even do it in 4 months, but that's kind of risky. I would try to pick a date either 6 to 8 months out to give you time to get all of your publicity and your program and everything else in place. Then you need a venue where you're going to have this regional conference. It could be at a hotel, like the Grand American, although something less opulent if you want to hold your costs down. You can also, you can also do it. Rebekah had one of hers at a Chamber of Commerce, and WCF had one of theirs at their equivalent of the Chamber of Commerce in Belgrade. If you can get into a university, the universities have great conference facilities. Some of them are free, and some of them charge a very nominal amount of money. So that's another possibility. Be creative. You could also do it in a church hall. If you have a church that, that stresses family values, and you can't find another venue, you might want to have it in a church hall. And then think about the speakers. What kind of a program will you be putting together? What speakers do you want to have? Actually, the program comes first, then come the speakers. But before the program, a theme. What's the theme of your regional conference going to be? Is it going to be demographics? Is it going to be life issues? Is it going to be pornography and prostitution? Whatever it is, I think it's good to have a theme. But having a theme doesn't mean you can't bring in other issues. If a theme is demographics, it doesn't mean you can't have people there speaking about pornography, prostitution, marriage, whatever subsidiary issues you'd like to discuss. And then think about speakers. If at all possible, it's good to have a mix of local speakers who are well known in your country, in your area, in your city, and international speakers, people who are experts on these issues, people like Pat Fagan sitting back there. By the way, Pat pays me to sing his praises. I'm sorry, Pat.
May I interrupt very quickly?
Sure, go ahead.
People, I'd be glad to do it, and I'd like to experiment with some. Normally when I speak, if people know, I use charts a lot. And most of the information is always in the chart, and mine is more like a commentary. This could easily be done over Skype. The charts are there, been projected up, and if you want, and the cost is minimal, and it's much better for me, I don't have to travel to do it, but it's just one thing. And I think we should have some.
Yeah, well that's,
In my case, that works easily because most of mine is charts.
Right, and you also do a lot of traveling. But whenever possible, I think it's good to actually have a speaker there. It makes it easier for people to relate to the speaker if he's present where you're having the conference. Although in Pat's case, and perhaps some other speakers who were very popular, who do a lot of traveling, and who have a presentation that lends itself well to Skype, you might consider that as well. By the way, you don't have to be a World Congress of Families partner to put on a World Congress of Families regional conference. You just have to be someone who subscribes to the natural family philosophy, which comes from 1948, United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. The family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society, and as such deserves protection by society and the state. Okay, again, you need a timeline, at least 6 to 8 months out, if at all possible. Erroll Naidoo, will be here shortly from South Africa, Family Policy Institute of South Africa. He's having a regional conference next November, so he's going to spend a year planning this because he wants to make it a Pan-African regional conference. He wants to draw people from Nigeria and Kenya as well as South Africa. So, choose a realistic timeline. How long will it take to find a venue? How long will it take to get sponsors, if you need sponsors? What kind of a time lag do you need for putting together a program? And then, of course, one of the most important elements is publicizing it. You can have the best conference in the world, but if no one shows up, then you've missed out, shall we say. So make it a realistic timeline. You'll have a venue by this date, let's say 2 months hence. You'll have the program put together 3 months out. You'll have speakers 4 months out, and so on. In terms of scheduling, in the northern hemisphere, I think spring and fall tend to be best, especially, and actually any time in spring and early fall, probably September, October. You don't want to do it. You don't want to do it in the summer if at all possible, because a lot of families are on vacation. Kids are out of school. They want to take off somewhere. So I would try to avoid the summer. I've tried to organize conferences in the summer, and it's brutal. It is absolutely brutal. It's hard reaching people. A lot of people in the summer just aren't. They want to forget all about everything, so they're off by themselves, and they don't want to focus on conferences. People like to focus on conferences in the spring and the fall. Now, do you want to have a 1-day or a 2-day event? Obviously, a 1-day event is less expensive. 2-day event gives you an opportunity to have more speakers, more topics, so you have to weigh these considerations. Personally, I think you can do whatever you have to do in a 1-day conference, although Rebekah's had 2-day conferences and they've gone extremely well. Well, again, it's up to the local organizing committee. But whatever you decide to do, if it's a World Congress of Families event, we'll support it. Do you want to do it during the week or weekends? Weekends tend to be best because most people don't have to take time out from work, and a lot of people who come will want to be there for the entire conference. Location. Put it in a city, major city, not far from an airport for international speakers and hotels, accommodations. And we talked about looking at various venues. By the way, if at all possible, try to get a venue that's wheelchair accessible. I think it's very important, especially for us, for those of us who are pro-life, who are fighting euthanasia and laws of that nature, to design our meetings in such a way that they're accessible to people who are handicapped. Costs, try to keep your costs down. It's up to you to decide whether or not you're going to have a registration fee. Now, in most of North America, people can afford to pay $75, $100, $125 for a regional conference. In a lot of countries, in Latin America, in Eastern Europe, people can't even afford a nominal fee. And the people that you want to have at your conference, your target audience should include young families, parents with children. And they don't have a lot of disposable income. So if you hold your costs down, then your registration fee is going to be lower, or you can decide to simply skip having a registration fee. Costs, well, if you have to pay for the venue, obviously that's going to be included in your budget. You may decide you want to provide a meal, lunch, if it's a one-day conference. You may decide you want to provide a meal for lunch, something not too expensive, sandwiches perhaps, something a la carte. Whether or not you provide a meal, and by the way, if you don't provide a meal, you're going to need to take a longer break for lunch, because people will have to go out for lunch, and you want to be sure that your venue is fairly close to restaurants, so that people can walk to wherever they're going to have lunch and get back, let's say, in an hour and 15 minutes. Even if you don't have a lunch break, I would try to provide for coffee breaks, because people get tired, they want a break, they want to have a chance to converse with other people, networking is an important part of these conferences. So at the very least, I would have a coffee break. Coffee, soft drinks, bottled water. If it's not too expensive and it's in your budget, perhaps pastries, something like that. I like Krispy Kreme donuts. So, If I'm,
Did you hear the ding? 15 minutes.
Oh,
I wondered if you heard the time of the line.
no, I did.
It just did.
Okay, so I've used up my 15 minutes, or,
Yes, and you can wrap up.
okay. Okay, can I take just maybe 5 minutes more? So that's the cost. Your venue, food, whether it's lunch or coffee breaks, and possibly international speakers. If you want to have international speakers, I would look for speakers with organizations that can afford to pay their travel, so that you don't get stuck paying for travel of, let's say, 3 or 4 international speakers. So look for people in the larger organizations, especially in the United States and Europe, that can afford to pay for travel. And for a lot of people, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to get their message across in a place where they wouldn't ordinarily have a chance to converse with people, and also to show their supporters and donors that they're getting the job done. What can World Congress of Families do to help you? Very briefly, we can help you put together a program. We can help you put together a budget. We can help you to publicize the event internationally through our publications. Our monthly electronic newsletter, World Congress of Families News, that goes to almost 200 pro-family leaders all over the world. In our weekly leadership memos, we can do press releases. We can help you write press releases for local media. We can contact speakers for you if you feel you need our help with that. About the only thing we can't do is give you money. Because doing one Congress a year now, we just don't have the funds for regional conference. However, we might have some ideas on how to raise the money for your budget. Sponsorship, and that's a great way to do it, and you might, as a quid pro quo, you might give the sponsoring organization a literature table, mention them in the program and in your advertisements and so on. So anyway, there's more, but I've probably taken enough of your time. Any questions, you can contact me online. Again, it's dfeder, D-F-E-D-E-R, at rcn.com. And if you want a copy of this, the how to organize a regional conference, which I think would be very helpful, we'll provide that as well.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll hear from Rebekah. Will that be okay?
Yes.
And Rebekah is from Trinidad. She's a pro-life attorney, and she's the founder and director of the Elpis Center, which I learned means hope in Greek. And so they're a pregnancy and family resource center, and she's going to be talking about the possibility of a regional event in Jamaica.
All right. Thank you very much, Kathleen, and good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon.
So I'm going to just show you briefly. Which one is it? Just 2 flyers from the events that we did. so you can see. All right. It's warming up. All right, so a little bit about myself. So this is my husband, Colin, and this is the very first time he's attending an international WCF. This is my third. My first was Amsterdam, the second was Spain, and then this is my third. I'm a wife first, a mother, of 4 children, ages 4 to 13. I'm an attorney by profession, but we've been running a non-profit since 2009. And this non-profit does work in several areas. We do crisis pregnancy support because there is no other registered pregnancy crisis center in Trinidad and Tobago, and I think in the entire Caribbean we probably have 2, maybe 3. We also run an abortion recovery healing program, which we've been running for 6 years now. And we're the only one in Trinidad and Tobago and one of 2 in the Caribbean. And the second one that got started in St. Lucia got started out of networking from one of the regional WCFs. We also do a lot of educational work. So we go into schools, we talk about pro-life issues, church groups, community groups. We run a teen program for risk avoidance behavior. If any of you sat into Dr. Capola's workshops, any of you went any? Okay. So Dr. Nancy Capola has an evidence-based risk avoidance program that we run in Trinidad. There's a reason I'm sharing all of this, right? So that when in 2012, we decided to do an event in Trinidad, and it started off as a pro-life event. What we wanted to do was celebrate the sanctity of human life, and we were going to network throughout the Caribbean region and pull people from every island and see if we could build a movement around pro-life issues. And so when I contacted the WCF, Don and his team, to say, look, this is who I am. I was in Amsterdam in 2009 and I learned all these things, and since then this is all the work we've been doing in Trinidad, and here's an event that's coming up. And so the recommendation was made to consider having the event evolve into WCF regional. And so out of those discussions, we held a 2-day event. So it went from a half-day event to a 2-day event. How did we pull that off? And this is just to encourage you that you really don't need all that you think you need to make an impact. That event was done with no marketing budget. The person who designed our F5? It's no biggie. Alright, so that's just where we are in my email, but I have some cards. So this flyer was done by one of our board members who's also a graphic artist, right? So she did this at no cost. And this was our main marketing tool. In terms of choosing the theme, which Don spoke about, we chose stabilizing our future because at the time, and in hosting the regionals, you need to have your senses out there in your own country or your own region to know what the issues are. What is it that is on the radar? What are the threats? What is it you need to raise people's awareness about? So in 2012, when we did this, it was because at the time CARICOM was under pressure that within 5 years, which would have been by 2016, we needed to decriminalize buggery, we needed to decriminalize prostitution, and we needed to liberalize our abortion laws. So there was this agenda that had been laid out from the UN level, filtering through CARICOM and into the individual islands.
People may not know what CARICOM.
Oh, CARICOM, sorry, is the Association of Caribbean Countries. From Trinidad, go all the way up to Jamaica and including Belize. So it's part of the OAS, which is the Organization of American States. So the CARICOM is part of the OAS. So in other words, any mandates from the UN, we are affected, right? And the CARICOM as a region is put under pressure too, right? So right now the HIV/AIDS agenda is high on their list, and of course they are pressuring every single island in the region to decriminalize buggery as a way to bring down HIV/AIDS rates. You can do the maths and figure out exactly, right? So this was the one that we did in 2012. We learned from it that, I mean, the registration, the fees that you saw on that flyer, we did drop them because we realized that those fees were not attractive to, in a country that was small, where we're trying to reach people on tough issues, because these are tough issues that we're asking people to engage and to think about. Some people don't like to think about these issues. We'd rather not think about it. We'd rather not think that this is really going to happen. I remember when doing the marketing, and my marketing campaign was what I would call a foot-by-foot marketing campaign. So it was just me and my flyers, basically going from church to church, leader to leader, making appointments, knocking on doors. That's how we had to do it initially, because there was no concept of what is Rebekah talking about? What are these UN issues? What, is she crazy? What do you mean the family is under threat? And right, so our initial, in our case in Trinidad and Tobago, the initial breaking of the ground in 2012 had to take a different approach, right? Then in 2013, the theme of that one was building a culture of life and a civilization of love. So it was an effort to build literally on the Congress that we had done the year before. And so between the first one and the second one, we probably got almost 100 people, additional people at the second Congress. I took great care in planning the program, and the WCF leadership was very helpful in helping us with the speakers and sending speakers who were really able to impart knowledge. But we also chose speakers who were doing programs with us already. So that's why I mentioned all the work that we were doing at the beginning. Because these events flowed out of a nonprofit that was already attempting to do several practical things on the ground. So some of our speakers were people who were already working hand in hand with us. They knew what our culture was in Trinidad. They knew what some of the issues were. They knew how to communicate it to the audience. And the interesting thing about the regionals is that flowing out of it, and to be quite honest, when you do these events and the seeds are planted, you really don't, it's impossible to calculate the returns on these events. It's impossible to measure exactly every impact that you've had when you host these events, because you're bringing together people who then go back into their spheres and they're multiplying their impact by that many people that could be multiplied by that many people. So it would be difficult for me to measure for you every impact that these regionals have had, but I can give you some examples. So for instance, at our 2012 regional, we spoke about post-abortion stress, what it looks like and what it does to women and families. And coming out of that, we had several women come to our healing retreat, right? So they listened to the speaker, they listened to the facts, they realized that there was a personal issue, and then they came to us after for healing. We've had parents who chose to homeschool because their kids were being bullied, they were not satisfied with the education system in Trinidad and Tobago, they were having issues with the special needs children. They came to the Congress, they heard about homeschooling, and they found the courage to go back home and do something different. We've had, at this event here, we have about 12 attendees from the Caribbean now, right? We have 3 came from Belize, 3 came from Jamaica, we have 1 from Anguilla, St. Lucia, Barbados, and of course Trinidad and Tobago. 2 of those people are people who were at our 2012 regional. So through those networking and building alliances, they have gone back, and they've kept up the fight in their own islands. Because it's impossible for any one of us, and definitely not the WCF leadership or the people at Sutherland Institute here, or the others that you've seen on stage, to make an impact in every corner of the globe. So it really comes down to us to take ownership for where we are, where God has planted us, right? Some of the other positives that have come out of these regionals have also been to strengthen our own efforts as a nonprofit, because we have then been able to draw on so much inspiration and knowledge and the networking, and it has strengthened our own efforts as a nonprofit. And just the value of partnerships and knowing that there's someone else at the end of an email that you know will respond with an answer or support you or give you prayer or some sort of backing that you need. Because this is not, this is a fight, yes, and we know what the end result is, yes, but while we're going through it, we're literally going through it, we're still journeying through it, and there's a lot of obstacles along the way. And just knowing that you're part of a network of people who have been briefed, who have been educated, who have been enlightened, who have been brought up to date. And I'll give you one other example of a plus that has come out of this. The head of one of the denominational groupings in Trinidad and Tobago has now gone on to launch his own marriage campaign because of the exposure over the years to the information coming out of the congresses and just from us as a non-profit continuously knocking on their doors and saying, hey, these are issues and we need to address them in Trinidad and Tobago in a way that makes sense to our own people. And so now he has gone on and launched several marriage retreats, marriage campaigns within his local own denomination, right? Truth is truth, and when the seeds are planted, you allow God to take it from there, and there's just no telling how he's going to water that and blossom that. There's just a list of what I've already spoken about, but some of the benefits of these regionals is the networking, which is very rich and very generous, the building of alliances, finding common ground with people. At our congresses, we've had different people from different faith backgrounds. We've had Hindus, we've had Muslims. So you learn to find common ground with family, faith, and freedom, as can say. There was one meeting that I was invited to last year as a result of all the work that we've been doing in Trinidad, but it was a national meeting to discuss the introduction of a gender policy. And we had, myself, I had done a paper as a result of all the learnings that I've come across over the years and people I've interacted with. And then that paper made it into the hands of the Minister of Gender Affairs, and she held this broad coalition type meeting. And you would be surprised that people of all faiths and all backgrounds, the Buddhists, the Hindus, the Muslims, the Anglicans, Catholics, Evangelicals, Pentecostals, everybody more or less said the same thing when it came to marriage. And these are, in a country like mine, which is very diverse, ethnically and religiously, those are benefits that we've been able to draw because we've advanced these issues, because we've brought the research to the front, because we've spoken in reason, with reason and in love. And we've put aside the differences and focused on what it is we can agree on, right? The regionals of at least the ones we've done, and I think it could be said for all, that it tends to stimulate persons to get working. Right? It's one thing to cerebrally know there is an issue, there is a problem, it's something out there, but it's another thing to come into an environment like this in the regionals where you see other people of faith working on projects, toiling away. It tends to be inspiring to others, even the emerging leaders who are here, and they maybe one or two in the room. It's inspiring to them. And then of course there's the education bit of it, and just that sparking off of truth. What I've found in Trinidad and Tobago is that people would say to me after the Congress, Rebekah, I really did not know. I didn't know this was an issue. I didn't even know marriage was a public good. I thought marriage was just a contract between two people, and if it worked, it worked. If it didn't work, it didn't work. I never knew that marriage was a public good. I never thought that God, religion, and society would intersect in such a powerful way, right? So, and there is a saying we have in Trinidad that when you know better, you do better. And so what comes out of the regionals, what has come out of the regionals for me is that it has provoked people to do better as a result of the quality and quantity of knowledge that they have learned, right? As to where we're going next, we're looking at Belize as the possible site for our 2016 regional. We've had 2 in Trinidad already. We could go back to having another one in Trinidad, but there has been some interest from my friends in Belize. And Belize is a member of the Caribbean bloc, even though it's under coast of Central America bordered by Mexico on the north and Guatemala on the southwest, right? But they are they're considered part of the Caribbean grouping and part of the OAS. And Belize, being 350, have already had litigation brought into their courts to decriminalize buggery. So of all the islands and the countries in the CARICOM, they picked on Belize first. And it may be for multiple reasons, maybe because it's one of the smallest, its constitution may be among one of the weakest. Maybe they felt they could pick on them. 50% of Belize population is under the age of 25.
Wow.
17, sorry.
Wow.
Time is up, right? Okay.
Decriminalize what?
Buggery,
Sodomy.
sodomy.
Okay.
Sorry, right? But one thing about the Belize people, though, is that they were able to galvanize themselves together quite powerfully, and they were able to put up quite a groundswell against that. And it's still going through. So they're quite excited to have the regional in their country, and with particular emphasis on their young people. Because like I said, 50% of Belize is under the age of 17. And I think 75% under 35.
Wow.
So there is a need to grab these young people before, and you see, that is the age group that the liberal left, right, would target. Because as one young lady said to me, we tend to be rebellious in nature at this age, and we want a cause to cling on to. So they're quite a grouping. So we want to go to Belize and focus on the young people and really galvanize their ideologies at a young age for what's right and what's good and what's in favor of the natural family and freedoms.
Thank you so much, Rebekah.
Thank you.
It was a
Thank
wonderful
you
work
very
you're
much.
doing. It's exciting. So Erroll, you are on. This is Erroll Naidoo from South Africa. He's the founder and CEO of the Family Policy Institute based in Cape Town. And he is going to be talking about the possibility of an event in South Africa and how to go about writing a proposal for doing a regional conference.
I don't know how to do a proposal. Doc's going to have to help me with that. But yeah, this is my 4th World Congress of Families. First one being Madrid, Spain. Don has been trying to get me since, I think, Amsterdam, and then Warsaw in Poland. I've been exchanging emails with Don Feder. It was just lack of funding that I couldn't get there, but I thank God that my wife and I, that's my favorite wife, by the way. We managed to get to Madrid, Spain, and then also to Australia, Sydney. And then it wasn't designated a World Congress of Families event, but Moscow, Russia was also a very, very informative event. And then, of course, this one here in Salt Lake City. But since we started attending the World Congress of Families and networking and meeting with all these incredible people, our work in South Africa improved greatly. Our ability to get research in social data and make our arguments just improved. I make a lot of submissions to our parliament on issues of marriage and family and human sexuality and all of those things. And so the help that I got was invaluable. So we want to host a regional World Congress of Families event. We tried to do one, I was thinking about talking about this year, but that wasn't possible. So we hopefully want to host one in 2016. It will be an African event, and what our plan is to get representatives of every African nation to South Africa, and the reason for that is that South Africa is no longer an African nation. We're still in Africa on the continent, but we don't look like an African nation. We look more like the Netherlands, like a Western European nation as far as our policy is concerned. So we've passed abortion laws, the most extreme liberal abortion laws in 1996, shortly after we became a democracy. Many of you know that we were under apartheid law, very repressive laws. In 1994 we became a a democracy, and shortly after that, the pendulum swung from a very repressive society to the most liberal society. And I think that had all kinds of issues. It was very damaging. 21 years later, and we can see the impact of that swing that many people believe shouldn't have happened. Our society wasn't prepared for it. So today, South Africa is in all kinds of trouble. All kinds of trouble. We have the highest rate of women in the world. We call the rape capital of the world. We have child abuse, children being exposed to pornography. We have family breakdown at an incredible rate. Only 35% of children in South Africa live with both biological parents. 35, and that's declining all the time. 600,000 children live without any parents at all. 600,000 children, where the eldest child is the parent in the home. Because both parents have died of AIDS. And these numbers are not going down. It's not declining. And now they want to decriminalize prostitution because there's an organization funded by foreign organizations that says, you know, if you decriminalize prostitution, you protect the human rights of women, and there's no evidence to support that. Because the nations that have done it, like the Netherlands and Germany and parts of Australia, it proves that when you decriminalize prostitution, the crime syndicates move in, take over, and they control the entire sex industry. And the thing becomes worse. Child prostitution increases, sex trafficking increases. Now we're already in problems. We have the highest sexual abuse of women and children in the world, some of the highest abuse of and sexual exploitation of women and children in the world, and we're still looking at decriminalizing prostitution. So you've got to ask yourself, so what's going on here? And it's because our government, a lot of the members of the ANC, the ruling ANC in our country, were during exile, during the apartheid years, lived in Europe, Western Europe, and went to the universities, and they came back with this Western European liberal ideology that doesn't fit well in South Africa with the majority of people. And so if you did a survey today in South Africa and you asked people about do they support abortion on demand, you'll get over 80% of people say no. Do you support same-sex marriage? Even higher, you'll probably get 90% of people say no, but it's illegal. You're going to understand what kind of society it is. It's a conservative family value because the African value system is very traditional, very family focused, marriage, all of those things. And they brought this Western European culture and just plopped it on this nation, and it's been devastating. I mean, devastating is not even the word. 65,000 women are raped in our country annually. And those numbers are increasing. Children are raped in our country and abused, and those are increasing. Last year, a report of a 43-year-old man raped a 4-month-old baby in South Africa. You know why? Because there are sangomas, these are witch doctors, teaching people that if you have sex with a baby, you'll be cured of your AIDS.
Oh.
And so the rape of babies is a big thing. Our government doesn't want to tackle it because they don't want to offend the sangomas, because they offend the sangomas, they offend the people that vote for them. So you want to talk about problems and issues and challenges. So we've got all of these things going on, and so as my organization is called Family Policy Institute, and so we make submissions and we use media. We've got a television program, current affairs program that goes on a Christian channel, so we can say whatever we want to, and it's very popular. It goes right up Africa, and so we're dealing with all this these challenges from a biblical Christian or Judeo-Christian perspective. We want to help people understand all of these things that's happening in your society. There's a reason for it, and it starts with marriage and the family. And as these institutions break down or weaken and become dysfunctional, you see all of these issues happen around you. When I was in a couple of months ago, my son and I, who's studying to be a lawyer, did a presentation to Parliament because they decriminalized sex between children of the age, between ages 12 to 16, they decriminalized that. It's okay for children.
Did.
Eh?
They tried that in Trinidad last year, so.
Yeah, decriminalize sex, children between the ages of 12 and 16, it's okay. And we made a presentation to our parliament on that. And like you were saying, Rebekah, you know, the church, we have a huge church in South Africa. There are millions and millions of Christians. We have churches with 25,000 members and 10,000, 15,000 members. But I don't know where they go to from Sunday to Saturday. I can't find them. I know where they are on Sunday. But through the week, I don't know where they are. Because the church is so big, but there's no influence and impact on the policies of the nation. And I often say that because I speak at churches and conferences all over our country. We travel often. And I speak to, in a year, I speak to millions of people. And I say to them, you know, if you go to an Islamic country, you know it's an Islamic country. You'll be there 5 minutes, you know it's an Islamic country. Here we've got a majority Christian population and our nation looks like hell. I don't understand that. And so our job is to try to wake the people. There's a lot of good people in South Africa. But it's the minority liberal group that has the loudest voice and the most influence, and I can't understand